What is the best secondary gadget in Siege X? Today, I'm going to be ranking all the secondary gadgets and see which one is the best. And if you don't know who I am, I used to play in semi-professional. So these are the gadgets that were good in the past and how they play into today's meta. So starting off with the OG, we have Barbed Wire. Now, Barbed Wire has been in the game for a very long time and throughout all the metas and states. But if we look at the OG Barbed Wire, operators used to have 3 pieces of barbed wire like Bandit. Bandit would just be able to lay down 1, 2, and 3. Because back in the day, they were more treated like barricades, whereas more like quantity over quality. But nowadays, having 3 pieces of barbed wire just covers too many entrances and causes players to be a little lazy when checking their angles. So we're back down to 2 pieces of barbed wire, and they actually didn't used to do damage. Back in the day, they would just rustle like this, but now if you hit it, your operator screams, they make a noise, and you take about 5 damage, I believe. So with the new updated barbed wire, having about 2 of them doing damage as well. And we're looking at the radius, it covers pretty much an entire staircase. The only times I wouldn't really like them is if they are more for like a hallway, because if you put them on a hallway like this, you kind of have to put it further because they can just kind of walk around it. You'll see a lot of people would rather just walk around the barbed wire, maybe get yelled once, but get a bigger punch on the enemy. So it's not the best gadget, but it does cover up your angles if you put it right here. They have to either punch it or scream, and most of the time players do end up punching it. So we can definitely cover your flanks when your teammates aren't. Now on doorways, I mean, they're okay, but a lot of the times you can just punch the barbed wire from safety like this, so it doesn't really do anything. But other than being kind of an entry denial, they're not very useful in sight. For example, if you just put them right here, you're as a player already playing here, so if anything, it kind of just gets in your way. So it's good on the outside of the bomb sites as a secondary gadget, but not very good on the inside. However, I would pick barbed wire over most of the rankings that we will be looking at this list if you keep watching the video. Yeah, fun fact, it also destroys ionic clones. And the most important tip I can give for barbed wire is please stop putting it at the very top of the staircase. The closer the barbed wire is to you, the worse it is. Let me explain. Because usually low rank players don't really understand to move past the bomb site. They mostly just know like to stay inside. They don't know to extend. So they'll put barbed wire like as deep as right next to the bomb chassis. This does nothing because it doesn't stop the attackers. It is too shallow. But if you allow the barbed wire to it should be very obvious to break it and walk through it. That's the whole point, is to alert yourself if anyone's trying to push through. So barbed wire lower is better than shallower. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to put the barbed wire at A tier. And if you're wondering what makes an S tier gadget, I think what makes an S tier gadget for me is something that you can use on every single bomb site and it will just be better than most of the other picks. And if it's more influential on you winning or losing a round. But we're gonna put barbed wire in the A tier just since it's mostly like an 80% pick rate, but sometimes you might pick the C4 over the barbed wire. Scuffed all ratings so far. This is our first rating. How's this scuffed? Please let Joey's family out. Okay, guys, I pay my editors. All right, moving on to the breaching charge. Now the breaching charge is an OG gadget. There's multiple purposes. So first, obviously we have the hot breach. The only issue is when you are hot breaching, it breaks the glass and it kind of makes a very loud noise on the other side. And also if you were to hot breach, it makes a very loud noise and it doesn't really give you that much of an element of surprise. It's a nice mechanic, but I think it's better paired with other operators that can do it. And there's a new change where you can do it with Ash, shotguns, Kali, Ram. There's a lot faster and more efficient ways than doing it with a breaching charge. But I mean, it's 2025. Who's actually breaching charging in this meta? Next, the most important part of using a breaching charge is obviously for vertical play. So putting them over common spots, it has a very good big radius. As you guys can see, it breaks all the way through, unlike Sledge or Buck sometimes. Makes good vert and good for both sides of where you're trying to get. So a good breaching charge placement, you only really need 2 or 3 to get all the maximum vert in a round. And also deploying it is pretty safe. You're not that vulnerable with C4s. You can put it down fast. The sound through the floor is loud, but you can get off pretty fast. But I think having only 3 of them, you don't really make vert with breaching charges. You would rather just pick a different operator like Sledge, Buck, Ram. But obviously it's a secondary gadget, so its main purpose is not supposed to be the main focus. And a neat trick, it actually does about 50 damage, I think, if you blow it up next to yourself. But a good thing you can also do is You can make a rotate and breach the floor at the same time with a breaching charge, just like this. This also works with other breaching gadgets like Thermite or Ace. Yes, that is a good point. You don't need to be there to detonate it. You can put it all the way there, and if you want to use it as a noise distraction while you're going down somewhere, you can, but it's not round changing. And speaking of round changing, is it round changing if you don't have breaching charges? No. Most of the time, people die with them 3 in their pocket. But overall, getting a breaching charge over a vert to get some bandits off the wall, or maybe to get someone out of a common spot, can be round changing, but most of the time, it's not. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to put breaching charges at probably B tier. And one point I almost forgot to mention now is if you do play competitive, making rotates for your team to make the flow of your attack a lot easier is important. So a breaching charge can be good for that, but you would rather just bring Buck or Sledge or anyone with a secondary shotgun. Secondary shotguns have kind of low-key kind of taken over the role of breaching charges. And again, would I pick breaching charges over grenades, hard breaching gadget, even flashbangs? It's 50-50, but B tier is pretty good. All right, next up we have the Claymores. Claymores are actually very interesting because they recently got a buff where they detonate a lot faster than normal. Because back in the day, you could hop out on a Claymore and your foot could be in the Claymore for a solid half of a second, and you can sometimes kill someone that's on cameras. But now it detonates a lot faster, so you can barely get your gun out. Especially with a new ADS nerf, you can't really hop out on a Claymore as much. Now, most common, you would put a Claymore on the side of a window like this. So for a defender, it is 50-50 if they look left or right. Sometimes they don't check and it's a free kill. So to punish clumsy players, it's actually pretty nice. Also, if you do change the team colors, so right now we have orange, and a lot of people ask why my colors are inverted, because when I used to play competitive, changing your colors was not a thing. And defense always meant you were orange, and then blue was usually attack. And playing defense first in competitive was like a easy confidence booster. So that's just kind of the backstory of that. But let's say if I change my team color to red. Red is also a little bit harder to see. Obviously, we're in the sun, but inside the building, it's a little bit easier. But obviously, with Siege being kind of a very washed out kind of color maps, it might blend in sometimes. However, the easiest one to see is if you turn it to blue. Blue, then it's a lot easier to see. But indoors, Claymores aren't really used that much. I mean, you could use them if you were to point your Claymore a little bit more towards the doorway. Only one laser sticks out. So sometimes this can catch people off guard if placed good throughout the map. But for the most part, how many times have you seen the Claymore lasers and you've just been able to kind of pre-fire it and even see the edge of it? If you're an intermediate player, it's pretty easy to spot them. But they can definitely be really tricky and catch people off guard, because I run into a Claymore at least a few times a season. And let's think about it. Is it round changing if you have a Claymore? Most likely not. So like if I'm playing a rappel, I would usually want to have one there. It usually gives me some alert time, but otherwise Claymores are kind of a little underutilized. Usually having a drone on your flank is a little bit more useful because it gives you active information and overall can see a lot more. Now, one kind of hidden trick I like to use with Maverick is if you put your Claymores down, you put 1 or 2. Usually there's a bandit on the other side trying to trick, right? He's going to be standing there, but this works about like 3 times out of 5. This Mav where the lasers are going through, and the Claymore does not kill you. It only detonates where the lasers are going. So I could be right here and it wouldn't kill me. And the amount of kills I've gotten doing this is a lot. So keep this in the back of your mind the next time you try to use Claymores. So with that being said, I'm going to have to put Claymores probably at C tier. They're useful early game, maybe end game, but for the most part, they're pretty easy to see indoors. And obviously most of the action that changes the round is indoors. The odds of you just watching your own flank versus having a Claymore sometimes, it might reward, you know, bad flank watch, but at the end of the day, it's still decent, just very situational. Now, next we're moving on to deployable shields. Now, when you're using a deployable shield, they are old as... What's something old in this game? Old as King George. Point is, the deployable shields have been in the game for a very long time. They used to not have the little glass slits between them, but now they do, and I think that's what made them a lot stronger, is because they're like a mini mirror. And obviously they have the mechanic where you can punch it. Oh shit, I can't pick... Well, I can't pick it back up now. But what I was trying to say is the most stupid thing people do with deployable shields in 2025, I don't know why they even do it in diamond rank, is they put the deployable shield right between the doorway like this. They think by sticking it right here, it's satisfying, it blocks the door. No, you know why? Because it makes it so you can only peek up one way. And you crouching up, it's just you're very vulnerable to a headshot. Not only that, but the attackers can use it evenly as well. What's the point of using the Deployable Shield if you're just going to give it to the attackers at this point? And people can put a frost mat under here, bro. And if you're in like silver below, it might work. But guys, stop doing this. What you should be doing is if it's a doorway facing, let's say this doorway is facing more out here, you would back it up a little bit and then put it down, because this minimizes the cover you have or maximizes the cover. You can peek left, right, and then top two because you have the low slits. You can also pair this with Jaeger ADSs or mostly Jaeger ADSs. This way they catch any grenades instantly, but not with mine because if you put it right here, it'll just blow up. Now, the right way to play Deployable Shields is to put them in areas you want to stop map control. For example, obviously the bomb site is inside here, so we want to hold this hallway outside to kind of extend where we can play. My favorite spot is to put this right in the middle of the hallway because it cuts between this cover right here. And that's enough to sit behind this Deployable Shield. And to not get wall banged, I would pair this up with reinforcements. So now, how you see, I basically unlock 2 more rooms to the bomb site that we can control. Pair this up again with Wamai or Jaeger, and you can really make a very good power spot. But a good rule of thumb with Deployable Shields, always give yourself some distance. Never put them too far up to somewhere, because otherwise it's going to be hard to kind of move around. But putting them in open areas where you normally can't stand is the best thing to do. In my opinion, you should watch Pro League or maybe even just look at high ranks and see how they use a Deployable Shield and just copy that. Yeah, and a nice thing, you can make pixel peaks with the shield. So if you kind of mess around with it, put it very close to the door, you can see right through this and you are just hard to kill. So in my opinion, I'm going to have to rank Deployable Shields at B. Like, I know they are a good win condition, but the amount of counters that you can have to it is too many. Anything that blows up, you know, Gun 6, grenades, any explosive from a gadget can break it. Even Ace Selmas can break it too. And you're kind of stuck in one spot. So even if you are picking left, out, and right, it gives the attackers a better, more room to get the peeker's advantage on you and pre-fire you and swing you. So although it is good for maybe the first half of the round, it does get broken out pretty easily, and it's not really a win or a lose if you have the Deployable Shield up or not. It's a soft A, but just be, you know, if everyone here is pretty smart, we're going to put it in B. Next up, we have frag grenades. Frag grenades have been in the game for a very long time, and they've had a lot of ups and downs. Now, back in the day, you were able to like cook the grenade, so you could go below, and then you could kill someone in a hard corner. And this could be round changing, but obviously you can't do that anymore. People might say, oh yeah, you could shoot the floor and then put it in. But it just sometimes it falls out and it's not as effective because they can see the grenade indicator and they'll just run away. But in Pro League, this will be the first kill out of like at least half of the matches. So Ubisoft did take it away because there was no way to fight back against a cooked grenade. But even without cooked grenades, they can still be very good. So for example, if I'm trying to get someone out of a corner, like half wall, I could just throw it and they have to move and I can pre-fire when they're running away, and it's a guaranteed kill. Also, if there's bandits on the wall, I can just bounce it off and don't have to worry about it, you know, getting destroyed. It just immediately detonates and kills everything in here. They're also very good for killing an injured person if they're calling away. You can throw the nade very quickly, you know, get a finished kill. But really, it's just very good for getting people out of those hard to get out of corners. The radius is very large, so anybody in this room will die to that grenade. So yes, yeah, you can use them as bait. I could just throw it at the floor and people think it will, like, it just makes people run away and you can just pre-fire them. And even if the grenade is not meant to kill anyone, it's still a very good sound cue. So for example, if someone's in this room, right, I can throw the grenade and it bounces pretty far. I can throw it, it goes in there, people hear it roll, it blows up, and it gives me about 2 to 3 seconds to sprint in and make any plays that might, you know, throw them off guard. Same thing if it's a post plant. Let's say my teammate is planting on default right here. I can just throw a grenade at the door and it gives me about a solid like 5 seconds of area deny. Now, how about making vertical with grenades? I mean, it's kind of hard to get them to aim, but if you get the trajectory, it's nice. But they make not the best vertical because it only makes a small hole. But overall, grenades are just more for a aggressive playstyle. I also want to mention how iconic grenades are. I mean, just being able to kill someone with this projectile in a game like Siege where anything is possible, it really makes us for very creative plays and just things that keep you coming back to the game. For example, this one was invented by somewhere by Coconut Bra. But if you aim at this cloud, take some practice, and then you throw your drone, it goes directly down here. We've all seen the clip of Jinxie reacting to this. You know, you throw the grenade and it just comes down and kills someone. It's always a fun clip. So guys, keep being creative with grenades. And for that reason, we're going to come across our first S tier just because it is useful anywhere you go. Multiple purposes, multiple counters. And really, you can't go wrong with grenades almost ever. Next up, we have a heart breaching gadget, and heart breaching gadget has been in the game for at least a few years now, and it's very good because we're in a meta where pick and ban is a thing and all the heart breachers are just wiped off the board. So this is very good for operators that come up like Zero, Grim, Striker, even Ying, my wife, of course, one of my many wives. Now, heart breach is definitely a good default pick that a lot of players go with just because of the versatility, and it actually can win you rounds because let's say if we have no Hibana, no heart breachers, everyone just picks frag ops, right? And their basement with Cade banned. It is a no-brainer to come heart breach these hatches. And even if there is a K-Claw, you just hit it once with the EMP and then boom. That site pressure is on there. Boom. Site pressure is also down here. This is probably the most important hatch to get out of the entire bomb site for basement. And the best part is I don't even have to limit myself to a support role. Playing someone like Striker or Hibana allows me to play a frag op. And I think Striker is the best one for this because you have that heart breaching gadget. It's awesome. Or EMP. And not only for hatches, but you can use them very well for ghost pressure. Let's say if you just want to get like a back wall open, like freezer, and not even playing there, if it's just open, like players will just like start positioning different. Even mid round, let's say they start bunkering up, boom, you open up this line of sight and it immediately changes the entire defense lineup. Players are forced back, and then you force them back into the position where prep can be a lot better. But the amount of line of sight you can get is amazing. You can even use them on castle barricades too to help clear, but that should be more of a thing for Hibana, Sledge, and even just punching it. But how good is the breaching charge for vertical play? Now, on vertical play, it's not the best. It does make a small hole, but you can barely really see out of it. Breaching charge definitely is better in this situation. Now, this is a very tough ranking, but I'm gonna have to put the heart breaching gadget at A tier. The only reason I don't put it in S is, again, like, is it a huge round winning change that I can utilize early and late round? Not really. But don't get me wrong, if your heart breacher dies, it does give you that good potential on attack, so you don't have to worry too much if your heart breacher is dead. Also, again, those late round angles is very good. So don't get me wrong, guys, A tier is still very good, but again, it's a secondary gadget. Its heart breaching purpose mostly lies in Maverick, Ace, Hibana, and Thermite. So still a good gadget, just not as useful in all cases. Next up, guys, we have the C4, one of the most OG gadgets in the game. I think so many memories, memes, great plays have been with the C4, and there's no surprise behind that. There's even the saying that Jinxie C4 now, just if you throw a bad C4. But let's get into the details of how C4s have evolved over the years. Number one, you have it paired up with information and gadgets like a Valkyrie camera, call out, pulse scanner. One of the most overpowered things in the game right now, low key, is the Z ping or the yellow ping, because the enemy has no idea where that is, and if you go below, you can tell exactly where someone's planting and they have no idea. Now just throw C4, and the radius of the C4 is so large, even if you kind of miss them, you will still do a massive amount of damage. But let's say if you're also dealing with a shield, if a shield is chasing you or Monty's in the corner, you will still do at least 50 plus damage to him. And again, C4s are good for finishing anyone that is downed, getting him over railings like this. Another fun thing that people like to do is also just throwing C4s through the floor. So if you can chuck a C4 over like this, and also just pre-placing C4s so that way you can tell your enemy whenever they walk to that ping, if they have a camera, you can blow it up anywhere on the map. So a lot of rounds are won by C4s from like first picks, killing the plant denial, and also like it's kind of hard to shoot it mid-air. I think with experience it's kind of easier to shoot, but like mid-round when you're caught off guard, it is hard to shoot. But I forgot to mention this with grenades. The fact that you can kill someone with with this gadget, pretty low risk, makes it very, very good. We've also seen people do C4 baits where they throw the C4 at the enemy like this, and it causes them to run away, and you can give us some devious back shots. And if getting a C4 kill to deny the plant and winning the round was not satisfying enough, a C4 spawn peek hits even harder. Right now, there is a C4 tech going on where if you put a Mozzie Pest down and you put a C4 right on it, let's see if we can just a little bit further, and then you shoot the Mozzie drone really far out, really far out, really far out. Okay, I'm definitely not looking it up because I know how to do it. I'm just showing you guys a video of it. But yeah, you can basically throw C4s all the way out of spawn, as you can see right here. That is insane. There's some crazy C4 things you could do, but C4 is so innovative in this game. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to put C4 at S tier because this is a gadget that you will run over all the other gadgets in the game. I don't remember a single time where you would choose a C4 over anything else. Or I don't remember a time where you would choose anything over a C4, except if you're playing like, you know, someone with a deployable shield. And there's a very rare instance where you would run like a bulletproof camera or observation blocker on someone. But for the most part, if you can kill someone pretty efficiently and consistently, it is S tier. Now, next up, we have the proximity alarm. Prox alarms have been in the game for a while, and they're actually pretty useful. They're a lot more useful than other things like observation blocker. And if you guys don't know, proximity alarms used to give you points on your score whenever it would go off, but that would be very strong when paired up with C4s, because right as it goes off, you could just detonate a C4 and it'd be an instant kill. So the enemy wouldn't be able to fight back, therefore Ubisoft nerfing that. So they just make a noise, but they don't have any scoring. Now, proxy alarms actually are almost as useful as barbed wire. So they're good for, again, alerting yourself if they're very far away. For example, again, why would I put a proxy alarm like super close right here? Let's say if I'm playing behind the bar, right? And it goes off. Sometimes I wouldn't have enough time to react. It should give me at least like 2, maybe like 3 to 5 seconds minimum to react. So like hiding them under here, this proxy alarm will go off, anyone goes in the mud, and then they'll turn around and shoot it. But I like proxy alarms where somewhere where I can't have an immediate line of sight. So let's say like blue bar door here, right? If I'm playing in sunrise, that proxy alarm is going to go off and it gives me enough time to look back and get ready for the fight. Same thing with cool vibes. I like to put it right here because if that goes off, they have to walk down the staircase and then I have time to aim down. So giving yourself at least one room away full of the proxy alarms is kind of good. And even if I'm not playing in that room, I could just put it over there. They would most likely shoot it, give wing a position if I'm even all the way back in the site. The only downside is that obviously you just can walk right through them and they don't physically stop you, but they just make a loud noise in return compared to barbed wire. But again, they're still very good for that. And sometimes I might be like IRL, you know, not even playing Siege, and sometimes I might hear the proxy alarm. Am I just cooked or? But with that being said, I'm gonna have to put proxy alarms at B. Again, just because they physically can't stop you, but they do let out a loud noise. Moving on to impact grenades. Again, OG gadget, one of the top gadgets in the game, 100%. Similar to the C4, it could do a lot of damage. It did get nerfed in damage. It doesn't show the damage anymore. I think it's like, what, 40 damage now? It used to be about 60, but people were like getting 2-shot and put into the Pokeball right after the second one. So they nerfed it a little bit because they saw like, oh, impact grenades need to be more of a like map destruction rather than killing someone. Maximum of 40 damage within a 2-meter radius. Yeah, and if they're out of the 2-meter radius, it does like less than that. Like it can even do like 5 damage, 10 damage. But I mean, impacts are very self-explanatory. They make very large holes so that way even you can walk through them. These are a lot better for using against the wall versus C4s because C4s are just a waste. Save those for people. Use these to blow up walls. And if you want to make footholds, you just lower the impact grenade lower, about more on the floor like this. And obviously, if you want more of a walk-throughable, you do it about a little bit below head, like chest level. Because if you do it too high, then you have wood on the floor and then you can't run through it. Now, please, I would say leave the walk-through rotates to the shotgun people. It is better to use 4 shotgun pellets than waste the impact grenade. It is more useful to use impact grenades to finish off down kills or to suppress shields. We all know how annoying it is to face up against a Blackbeard, Monty, or a Blitz. So you kind of want to use this to knock them back. Anything to shave off HP is important. However, if you are busy, just make sure you make the impact grenade right, and then you can use these for good rotations. A very common one is to impact the door. Now, people usually do the top, not the right, the middle, because you can kind of damage yourself. But if you do it up here, you're out of the radius, and then you can go for a sick run out. Another popular one is if people just impact right as they go out like this. This can destroy any kind of C4. You do take some damage, but it's worth it for the hop out. The only thing is, it does, if you run too far away, like if I impact it now and then I run out, it does make a loud noise, so be careful because you might get pre-fired. A lot of times when they hear the impact grenade, people tend to just pre-fire the destination that they're going to come from. But really, even if you're trying to retake site, this is very good for opening up walls where they would impact this and then peek the other way. Or even if you're trying to get rid of your teammate's gadget, like a zombie or deployable shield, you can get rid of that. You can also use impact grenades to destroy hacked Brava stuff. So like if a Maestro Cam gets hacked, it is better to throw it at the Maestro Cam and destroy it. So basically, if you want a successful impact grenade, you need to make sure you're having a good return off of it. Also, as a roamer, you can use them to open up patches in case your teammates don't have anything. This one has my hand shaking that I would put this in S tier because impact grenades, I would run over almost anything. I would run it over barbed wire. I would run it over a bulletproof camera sometimes. I would even run it over a deployable shield. However, the fact that you have two of them and mobility is very important in this game. Shields are a thing too. Impact grenades are a decent counter to shields, but obviously they don't kill them, especially with the damage nerf as well. You also can't impact trick anymore. I know I didn't mention that because impact tricking is not really meta anymore because with the radius, you can't destroy ace charges over walls anymore with thermites. It's a lot harder. If you were able to impact trick, I would put them in S. However, with the least damage, the least range, they're not always round winning. I think they deserve to be an A tier. But again, A tier is still good, but I think it's just with the nerfs, it definitely bumps down a few points. This has had a rise in popularity lately, but we next have the bulletproof camera. Now the bulletproof camera is good because even if you are dead, you can hop on the cams for your team because default cams get shot at a lot. But if they're in a good spot, especially with the Z ping and the EMP, is very strong. It's definitely a stronger end game type of thing, and the thermal is also pretty helpful too. Bulletproof cameras are good almost everywhere in sight. Now we've seen a trend of people putting bulletproof cameras on the floor just because you can move around with them more. You used to not be able to move around with the bulletproof camera, but now you can use them as the EMP. However, I don't really recommend putting on the floor as it can be pretty easy to shoot it. I would recommend putting bulletproof cameras in hallways where it's kind of risky to hold an angle. So like if I wanted to know more about here, maybe you could put it on like a reinforced wall or maybe even the breach. So let's say like right here. So if I'm outside, it's kind of hard to shoot that bulletproof camera, but again, the weak point is shooting it from the side. However, I can see two common entry points like the breach run in, I can see the window. So this gives us a lot of good audio cues, and I can even use a Z-ping as well to show off anywhere where I need a C4 at. So if you have a 5 stack, sometimes running a bulletproof camera might be better than even a C4 because the end round info is life-changing. Especially if I have a bulletproof camera here and like the XQ is going down, people are not really going to pay attention to bulletproof cameras in sight. And when they walk in, especially with the secret Z-ping, you're going to be able to catch a lot of enemies. And if they can't shoot it, they're going to panic and they're just basically a sitting duck. Now, yes, there is the thing where people like to reinforce a wall and then they like to shotgun it out. And with a Rooney, you can put the bulletproof camera inside and then put a Rooney gate over it, but really you don't really need that much protection. But yeah, the most important thing about bulletproof cameras is you just want to put them in areas where they can't be shot from the side easily. So with that being said, I'm actually going to put the bulletproof camera at A tier. Information is one of the most important things in Siege, so even if you aren't having a mic, you have that Z-ping you can work off with. Rounding up to more of the attackers, we have smoke grenades. Now smoke grenades are very good for blocking lines of sight, for going for plants, or even just trying to sprint in and take a piece of map control. For example, if we are on Oregon bunker and there are the head holes here, right? I can use a smoke grenade to block off one line of sight that's blocking me from going in, even the doorway as well. So this gives me about like 10 seconds to make a play and then take more of an isolated fight on elbow. Paired up with the ying, they won't see where the ying is coming from or even bunker. But even if you're not using it for ying, it's just good for just that extra safety. Now, whenever a smoke does go off, you gotta wait a little bit because everyone pre-fires into the smoke for the first like 3 seconds and then you should act off. But sometimes right when the smoke goes off, it does give a good perfect chance to go in. Now, one thing I will say with smoke grenades is it is better to block off lines of sight further on the enemy because you don't want to use smoke against yourself. Let's say I smoke out this door right here, right? Yeah, we can kind of walk in, but it does give the defenders the ability to walk in the smoke, Stewie 2K you. But if I did it more on this door right here, if they sprint through, my gun is up. And I have a lot more room to work with, or even here right as well. I would probably smoke off this right here, or I would even smoke off the rotate deep. However, in Pro League, there is a lot of changes with thermal. Laz can see through smokes. Warden can see through smokes. Bulletproof cameras, Maestro cameras can see through the smoke. So you do have to be careful and be situational at times when you do use a smoke. You never want to use smokes if Warden is alive and if he's actually using his gadget. But for the most part, smokes are good for taking those map controls or even those end games where you need to get it planned down. Not gonna lie, I'm gonna have to put smokes at A, and let me explain. I think smokes just they give you a lot of protection to do what you want, and the radius is pretty thick. They also last for a long time too. You can also also use them to bait out your enemies, to bait out C4s and all that jazz. But you really block off. It's almost like a capital firebolt at times where people can't see through it. It forces the enemy to kind of think on the fly, and sometimes they can make a mistake. But overall, I feel like even with the bad smoke, you can't really go wrong with it sometimes. Now we have the brother of the smoke grenade, and we have the stun grenade. Stun grenade's kind of more the favorite child. Now there was an update a very long time ago where stun grenades would only flash if you're looking at it, but no matter what, if you're in the radius, you will be flashed. I think looking away kind of helps, but you will still be flashed even if it's kind of like near you behind you. Now we all know how much aura you lose whenever you miss a stun grenade and splash yourself. But before we talk about flashbangs, guys, I would highly recommend that you use stun effect from light to dark. It's a little bit easier on your eyes, but some people like flashbangs just from like playing CS or something like that at white. Sure, go ahead, be blinded in a few years, but I prefer dark glare. It also kind of reminds me when I flash myself, I feel like I'm back in Skyrim when you die. But flash grenades are good for two things. One, sound coverage, or two, visual coverage. The best part is you don't have to throw it directly on someone. Let's say if someone's playing white stairs, right? The most famous thing you do on a 1v1 is flash right here, and boom, it gives you some time to sprint and get closer and close the distance with the enemy. Same thing if I'm on attic, and if I can just bounce it in low risk, it goes off and it gives me some time. When they're flash, even if they can't see, they can't hear for like 3 seconds. And obviously this is connected with the tinnitus sound effect. So ringing obviously gives you that ring for the longest part. I would recommend not doing this. Now muted doesn't actually get rid of the flashbang sound. It just, you still hear it, like it fades out. It's just, you don't hear the ringing. So think about it as your sound just gets nerfed for a few seconds and it comes back up. The wave obviously is just it gets high and then it just is more of a linear one. Personally, I would just run muted. Like, I just don't need to hear the ringing for extra. But yeah, you definitely want to be fast with your flash grenades. Back in the day, you would have 3 of them, and then you would be able to spam them at someone. There was a clip of like someone playing Jaeger one time back in the day when his ADSs used to hold like 3 ADSs or up to 9 projectiles. The entire team just threw like 10 flashbangs or 8 flashbangs at him and then threw a grenade at him.
I fear no man, but that thing, it scares me.
But we're kind of in the meta where projectiles and sitting behind cover is not as crucial. Jaeger or Mai aren't heavily picked in that big of a win condition, so you don't really need to use the flashbangs to burn out ADSs as much. However, it's good to keep that in mind in case you do come across someone who's holding a shield with 2 ADSs. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to put flashbangs at A tier. Oh, dude, they're so close to S tier. The reason why I'm putting it at A is that like it doesn't guarantee, because it's kind of easy. It's kind of 50-50 if the flashbang does work, unless it's like perfectly placed on the enemy, because sometimes it might not work. The enemy moves a little bit and they can still kind of kill you, but it's good for sound coverage. It's good for moving around, similar to a smoke grenade, but I think it's good in A tier. It's just not good in every single instance, and it's not super round winning. All right, guys, we've seen a rise in this. This is the EMP grenade. You got about 2 of these, and this low key does replace Thatcher's ability, but does it really do the job? Let's find out. Now for EMPs, now the most common thing would be for the wall. However, it's very easy to mess it up because the radius is not as large as Thatcher's. If you're going up against a Cade, Thatcher is his biggest counter, or Maverick. But in this case, if it's just bandits, even sometimes bandits, if you do it in the middle, it can miss the left and right side sometimes. Or even a K-Claw. We all know when you throw it at the top and then the K-Claw's still there, you know you're kind of cooked. But besides for a wall, they're also very good just for destroying any gadgets on the other side. Let's say there's a Malusi gadget or an Ella gadget or a Jaeger. You can just toss the EMP at the side of the wall and then use your grenade freely. It's also a good counter to Cade. I know I just said that Cade's best counter is EMPs, but let's say if you get a K-Claw over here, right? EMP the first time, and he re-throws it back on, you can kind of just hear where he put it and then just throw it in the general direction. Not only that, but we all know the most common thing with Striker is use EMPs and hard breach. So if there's a K-Claw, you typically just do it in the middle, but sometimes if there is a tricky spot, I would recommend joining out the K-Claw first and then find out which corner the EMP should go to. But not only for those gadgets, you can also EMP people like Clash. This makes it so her shield cannot be used. And then a pretty popular combo right now is actually Sledge EMPs. Because if you just EMP the Clash, you just go up to her and hammer her down and lay her down. EMPs are the same thing, getting rid of bulletproof cameras, micro cameras. And a very special tactic that someone did is Macy J. When you put down the OSA shield and you see a C4 coming, you can C4 or you can EMP the ground and it will not allow the C4 to detonate. But you can be very creative with the EMPs since they go off instantly. But the question is, when would you run EMPs versus Thatcher? I think you should run EMPs if you are more confident with getting the gadget off. Thatcher is more of like, I don't know where the K claw is, so I'm just going to double EMP. But a tip for EMPs overall, you definitely need most of the time 2 of them to completely do the job, especially when things like K tricking exist and bandit tricking. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to put the EMPs also at A tier, just since they can't really fully disable something and they can't break anything. However, they're more of like something that needs another gadget to work with it or something to temporarily make a play. But EMPs will always be very helpful on the support and flex role of this game. So definitely use EMPs if you don't know what to use for a gadget. And the very last gadget we have on this list is the observation blocker, one of the brand new gadgets in this game. Now, the reason why I think observation blocker is not used a lot is just because, again, it only is meant for cameras. It doesn't really have anything to make or break around. It's more of just a waste time. Now hear me out. Observation blockers are not completely useless. I actually like using them on here and they actually didn't waste a lot of time. One thing I do like is their range. They have a massively long range, just like your slong if you get the Athieno charm, which adds 2 inches to yourself. But I like to place my observation blockers where they can't be shot super easily. But sometimes I will put one like this just to deny drones. Now I can play in Cigar and I can shoot any drones that come down from the hatch or that walk in here. So I'd say observation blockers are definitely good for any kind of early round gameplay to hide yourself, or maybe even late round where you might have like micro cams or any kind of like just something you're trying to hide. If the enemy isn't droning a lot, you can kind of, you know, use these to sit behind. But again, it's very kind of situational to make a play right behind it, and the odds of you getting droned around it is pretty high. So they're very situational, but I say they have like max 1 to 2 uses every single game on a map. And way back in the day, observation blockers, when they first came out, you could stack them. If you put about, I think like 5 observation blockers, it would block bullets. Now, obviously this was a glitch and it was patched, but this was really crazy when it first came out. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to put observation blocker at a high D and a low C. And ignore the Gon 6 down here, it's just random. But guys, this is my official ranking for Siege X secondary gadgets. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and let me know in the comments below if I made a bad ranking or if you disagree or agree with something on this list. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.